like for me, I think eventually I'd like to own my own practice. I do feel like coming right out of school, I think it would be possible, and I think I could be successful doing that. But I'm also the type of person that tends to like, I care a lot. Like I invest myself pretty fully in whatever I do, and I could see myself. Just dental school has already been hard enough to come home and like not have that be, a distraction from my family life and my, my life at home. And so for the first little bit when I get out of school, I had an opportunity to do something like that, to buy in with somebody at a really nice high-end private practice, same type of practice that I want to have someday. But I opted not to do that because I felt like it'd just be a lot of pressure coming out of school to try and focus on the dentistry side of things. Plus, most of the time when you're in a situation like that, the patients aren't necessarily just divvied out 50-50, right? I have worked in corporate dentistry for several years prior to coming to dental school and on the weekends during school as well. And I think corporate dentistry has a foothold. It's definitely always going to be here. But I think that with corporate dentistry, you have you plateau a lot faster than you do in private practice. So you'll come out, you'll have a better lifestyle for sure than probably somebody who goes into an associateship right away. You'll be able to have that nice house, the car, the lifestyle, everything that you want. But then depending on who you're with, the opportunities for ownership may or may not be available. And the opportunities as far as retirement and things like that, it's just not as lucrative as private practice. Mm-hmm. Then you have people who are going to do what I'm going to do, public health. So that's what I'm going to do. My wife has stayed home most of the time with our kids. She's worked some throughout dental school to support us and whatnot. But we still have quite a lot of loans. We're out of state and everything. So for me, I'm doing public health because, well, first off, I ran into a really good situation. Okay. It's in Nebraska, and Medicaid out there actually covers all procedures. Most Medicaid won't cover root canals. They won't cover crowns. They'll just cover like extractions and fillings, right? Right. So this place, I feel like I'm going to be able to get like a really good experience with kind of all aspects of dentistry. And then there's loan repayment that goes along with it. So I just have a salary pay. I'm not having to focus on like, crap, did I meet my quota to get my production, for the month, which I think I do fine in that setting, in a production setting, but it's nice to not have to worry about it right when you come out of school.
And stress. Yeah. You want a couple years with no stress.
Yeah. So I'll have like a base pay. And then on top of that, tax exempt loan repayment. Okay. And most of the places that I looked at loan repayment for, most places you end up getting around 20 to 30,000 per year. That's the highest that I typically found. Okay. And then when this place approached me, like I said, I feel like I just kind of fell into a good situation. The state of Nebraska has a program where they will pay the 20 to 30, and then the company you work for can match that, and then it goes into this little pot that is tax exempt. So you end up getting 60,000 a year. Loan repayment on top of whatever your base salary and your benefits and everything else is. So I guess long story short, like I do think that there are people who will go out and join private practice right away. And then you've got some people that'll do corporate, and then you've got other folks who are going to do some sort of like loan repayment type thing. And then you also have sort of this other growing subgroup of like residency, like general practice residency, so GPR or AEGD.
You working on like a clinic, or tell me what that looks like.
So there's multiple options with public health as well. So you have some that are government run and operated, and then you have private corporations who receive funding from the government. The one that I'm going to be working for is a private corporation. Okay. But it receives a substantial stipend from the government because they they work on patients who either do not have any insurance or they only have Medicaid insurance.
Okay.
And they get their funding based off of what is called a HPSA score.
Okay.
So HPSA, Healthcare Provider Shortage Area, is what it stands for.
Okay.
And what they do is they measure, they take like a census essentially of everybody and say like, okay, well, how many people in this area have an income below X? And then they look at the healthcare providers in that area and they say, okay, well, how many of the dentists in, X number of square miles take Medicaid or have some sort of sliding fee scale for people with low income? And they create a ratio based on the income level of certain people in the area, the average income level, and the number of providers who cater to low income people. And if that number is high enough, if it's a high number, then you get more funding.
Okay.
So the place where I'm going to go, there's actually not another Medicaid provider within like 150 miles.
Okay.
So
people are going to be coming from far away to get.
Yeah. Yep. And so they're scheduled out now for like over 6 months.
Okay.
Well, I don't know Comfort Dental, but so with those two groups though, this is something that they may not have considered. And I bring this up. My background's in business and administration and stuff. That's what I did before dental school. So whenever you hire an employee, right, I think that you want to be concerned about how long is that employee going to hang around.
Okay.
Right. So if you're looking to get somebody to stay around long term, you're probably going to, this is just my opinion, but in my opinion, people who have families and are more kind of in that boat of wanting to pay their loans off more, if you offer somebody like that a loan repayment that is over X number of years, they're more likely to say yes and to stay with you for X number of years than come work for you for a year or two, get a little of their loans paid off, get a little, get their lifestyle started, and then hop around to somebody else.
Okay.
I think it's pretty common to see, just in my classmates who've graduated ahead of me, you'll see a lot of folks who don't have families kind of work for a year or two at Aspen or Mortensen or Heartland or someplace, work for a couple of years, and then they leave because, they're just like, well, I'm good. Here's this other opportunity. Okay. I think that's kind of a trend we see with millennials in general, is they tend to leave quickly.
But the dentist actually makes 2 to 3 times of what a regular dentist makes because it's volume dentistry, right? So
any idea what the range is? Have they told you any numbers?
They're telling me that the range is I shouldn't say because I don't know what year it is, but they're saying their dentists are looking at more like $250,000 to $300,000 is kind of like the average of what they're.
I would be very, very surprised if that was the average.
Okay.
More realistically, I'll bet you they're probably making. This is just guess. I don't know because I haven't seen their numbers, but I've talked to a lot of companies, a lot of DSOs and mini DSOs, kind of like this. And most of the time, I've had people say, "Oh yeah, I've interviewed at several places where they say, "Oh yeah, this is kind of what we expect you to make." And then when I sit down and actually go through a pro forma statement, look at what the dentist produced last month and everything, you're probably more looking. I would say around like 225 would be a pretty good salary at that position. I'd say that's probably if you're doing well, that's probably what you're making, 225.
Okay.
Anything above that, you're killing it in a situation like that.
Okay.
2 cents, but I would be skeptical of something you're going to make over 250. No, I would say the majority of my classmates and even myself, like even with a business background, I'd still be intimidated to go out and start a practice. But I have a business background. I've worked in dentistry for a long time. I've seen how like the front office is run and things like that. I dealt with insurance before I became an assistant, right? So like I've been exposed to all of that. And so I feel more comfortable than I'd say a lot of people do. But coming out of school, I think there's a very small, very, very small group of people who would feel comfortable starting up on their own. I started my job search pretty early. I started it like sort of midway through my D3 year. And I feel like that's the other thing. I feel like a lot of folks didn't start until like midway through D4 year. In fact, I've got some classmates who still don't have something like nailed down. I think that's probably a wise. I think that's wise because if your target demographic is brand new students, then you're going to have to go through all the hassle of training them, getting them faster. You want to come at it from the side of like, hey, look, we want to be your ally. We want to be your friend here, right? How many of your classmates have you seen go out and have this experience where they work for somebody, they leave for a couple of years? We don't want that to happen to you, right? So sort of take that as like, we want to bring you in and be your help, your mentor here, right? We're your ally, we're your friend. So we don't want you to go through those first 2 years and end up having a bad experience. This is what we've seen happen in the industry. These are the problems that we've seen. Don't mention any names. Don't say any other companies, right? Just say, these are the problems that we've seen a lot of young guys have. And we think that's really unfortunate. So we said, there's got to be a better way. Well, this is what we've come up with.